Dust clawed at her face, the wind tugging the black shawl tight around her shoulders as Clara Hensley pressed on. The road stretched endless, a cracked vein across the desert floor, sun beating down so hot the air seemed to shimmer. Each step crunched dry earth under her boots. Each breath scraped her throat raw. She gripped the strap of the satchel at her side, the iron weight of a skillet clanking softly within. Ahead, the sprawl of Dry Creek quivered in the heat haze, weather-worn storefronts leaning against one another, their wooden signs swinging faintly on rusted chains. Horses stamped restless in the hitching posts. Men stood in clumps along the dusty street, their voices low, their glances sharp. A silence rode under it all, like a storm waiting to break. Clara stepped into that silence, the wind trailing grit behind her. Eyes followed. Murmurs stirred. Widow, stranger, beggar. I didn't need to say it. She felt it in their stares. She passed the saloon, where the piano lay hushed though men crowded inside. A card game paused as her shadow crossed the threshold. She didn't look up. She kept walking, skirts brushing dust, until the town thinned and the open land rolled again. Beyond the ridge, a ranch rose, broad fences stretching out, cattle scattered like dark stones across the hills. At its heart stood the McGraw house, tall and proud, white paint faded by years of sun. Smoke curled from the chimney, thin against the sky. The foreman spotted her first. He leaned against a post, straw hanging from his lip, squinting as she approached. His grin was not kind. "Ranch don't hire strays," he muttered, spitting into the dust. Clara's voice was steady, worn but unshaken. "I came for work. Cooking." He barked a laugh. Plenty of women in town would trade flour for a roof. "You'd best turn back." Before he could wave her off, another figure stepped from the porch. Elias McGraw, rancher of renown, broad-shouldered and weathered by years beneath the sun. His gaze cut sharp as a hawk's, dark eyes narrowing on the widow. He measured her not by shawl or satchel, but by the steel in her stance. "What can you cook?" His tone was flat, edged with impatience. "Whatever keeps men fed," Clara answered. The foreman scoffed, but Elias's hand silenced him. After a moment, the rancher gave a curt nod. "Kitchen's yours. Don't expect mercy if you waste it." That night, the kitchen breathed with new life. Pots rattling, bread rising, stew scent rolling through rooms that had long gone flavorless. Ranch hands lingered by the door, muttering surprise. Later, in the quiet upstairs, a small voice pierced the stillness. Lucy McGraw, eyes wide in the lantern glow, clutched her quilt and whispered toward the doorway where Clara lingered. "Can you put me in too?" The house held its breath. Clara stepped forward, the floor creaking under her boots, and tucked the child into warmth. For the first time in years, the McGraw house felt alive. The lantern sputtered in the kitchen, its glow fighting the draft that slipped through the cracks. Clara stirred the pot, steam rising to sting her eyes, while the wind outside rattled the shutters like bones against wood. Above, a child's footsteps padded across the floorboards, quick, then stopping short. Clara lifted her gaze. Lucy stood at the stairwell, her small hands gripping the rail. "They're out there again," she whispered. Clara stilled the spoon. The girl's eyes were wide, reflecting the tremble of flame. Clara wiped her hands on her apron, crossed to the window. Through warped glass, the yard spread in shadow, fences stretching pale under the moon, the barn hulkied black at the edge. For a breath, nothing stirred. Then movement. A figure slipping between posts, chalk scraping faintly against wood. Clara's jaw tightened. She turned, knelt to the child. "Back to bed, Lucy. Close the quilt tight." The girl hesitated, then obeyed, the creak of stairs soft as she vanished upward. Clara blew out the lantern, plunging the room to dark, and pressed herself to the window again. The men were swift, purposeful. They marked the fences, vanished into the mesquite, and the night swallowed them whole. At dawn, Elias rode in from the trail, dust caked on his coat, his stallion heaving hard. He swung down, voice low but sharp with anger. "They tried to catch me on the ridge. Gunfire from both sides." The foreman spat in the dirt. Rival ranchers. Been waiting to take your land. Elias's glare cut him short. No rancher fights that clean. His eyes shifted to Clara, standing silent with Lucy half hidden in her skirts. He said nothing more, but suspicion edged the air. Days passed, the weight of waiting pressing heavier. Men carried rifles slung across their backs, even to the supper table. Horses snorted uneasy in their stalls. The wind itself seemed to carry threat. Then it came, quick as lightning. A raid in the dead of night. Hooves thundered across the yard. Gunshots cracked the silence. Glass shattered in the bunkhouse. Clara grabbed the shotgun from above the hearth, the metal biting cold in her hands. Lucy screamed as splinters burst from the doorframe. Clara yanked the girl behind the table, steadied the barrel, and fired into the dark. The blast lit the room for a heartbeat. Figures outside scattering, curses cutting the night. Smoke burned her throat, ears ringing, but her grip never faltered. The house shook with the retreat of hooves, then stilled, leaving only the girl's trembling breath against her side. When Elias entered, pistol drawn, he found Clara standing firm, smoke curling from the shotgun in her hands. Her face was calm, eyes clear, as though the storm outside had found no purchase in her. He looked from her to the child clinging close, and for the first time, his stern gaze flickered with something like doubt, perhaps even respect. Flames clawed at the rafters, smoke rolling thick through the stables. Horses screamed, eyes wild, hooves shattering the floorboards. Clara's arms burned as she dragged Lucy through the choking haze, the girl coughing into her shawl. "Stay low," Clara barked, shoving the child beneath her arm. The air seared, the world a roar of fire and splintering beams. Through the blaze, a shadow rose. An outlaw, face lit cruel by firelight, revolver glinting. His sneer cut through the smoke. "Ain't no hiding from us, Black Widow." The word struck like iron. Clara froze for only a breath. Then her grip on the child tightened. She shoved Lucy toward the barn door, yanked up a rake from the floor, and swung. With cracked bone, the man crumpled. Clara dragged Lucy into the night, stumbling into the yard where men were dousing flames with buckets of well water. Elias caught sight of her, eyes narrowing at the outlaw's curse still ringing in the air. "What did he call you?" Clara's chest heaved, smoke streaking her face. She said nothing, but the foreman's voice carried. "Black Widow. I heard it too." The men turned, eyes flashing suspicion, muttering low. Lucy clung to Clara's skirts, her small voice cutting through the murmurs. "She saved me. She stays." The circle of doubt broke, but unease lingered heavy. By morning, word had spread through Dry Creek like fire on sagebrush. In the saloon, whispers buzzed. Widow's no stranger. Vultures marked her long ago. She brought death with her shadow. At the ranch, Elias pressed her hard, jaw set. "Truth now. What have you brought to my door?" Clara stood in the fading light of the kitchen, hands steady though her heart beat wild. "My husband was James Hensley. He crossed the vultures once. They cut him down for it. I thought if I walked far enough, they'd never follow. But I was wrong." Silence. Even the house seemed to listen. Elias's fists clenched, then loosened. He studied her as though weighing the cost of her presence against the ruin already burning at his gates. "You should have told me." Clara's eyes didn't flinch. "And you'd have turned me away. But your daughter would still be alone tonight." The truth hung heavy, unmovable. Outside, the charred stables smoked against the horizon, and the men sharpened their blades in grim silence. The vultures were coming back, stronger, bolder, certain of the prey they hunted. Clara turned from Elias, lifted Lucy into her arms, and carried her upstairs. As she laid the girl down, the child's hand clutched her sleeve. "They can't take you," Lucy whispered, half dreaming. Clara bent low, her voice quiet but edged with steel. "Not this time." The sky bled red at dawn, dust twisting in the wind as hooves thundered down the main road. The vultures rode hard, black hats low, rifles gleaming. Townsfolk pressed against storefronts, shutters slammed shut, silence falling heavy as death. Clara stepped into the street. The shawl was gone, her black dress whipping in the wind. In her hand, the Colt revolver glinted, old steel polished clean, the weight of it steady as breath. The outlaw leader reined up, scar cutting jagged across his cheek. His voice carried like gravel across stone. Widow. Should have stayed buried with him. Clara's eyes didn't waver. You took him. You won't take the girl. The vultures fanned wide, circling. Elias and his men stood behind the fences, rifles raised but hands unsteady. The rancher's jaw clenched, but his gaze was fixed on her, the woman standing alone in the dust. Lucy's small figure peeked from the porch, her fingers clutching the rail. Her whisper carried though no one else heard. Come back. The leader dismounted, boots striking the ground like drumbeats. He dragged his thumb along his revolver's hammer, grin widening. Last chance, widow. Run. Clara's hand hung loose at her side, breath even. The street held stillness like the pause before thunder. Then steel flashed. 2 shots split the air. Smoke curled, the echo rolling down the canyon walls. The outlaw staggered, eyes wide, scarred face twisting as he dropped to his knees, then the dust. Clara's Colt lowered, smoke trailing from the barrel. Her gaze stayed hard, unbroken. The vultures reeled. For a moment, the silence screamed louder than gunfire. Then chaos. Hooves struck dirt. Men cursed. Rifles clattered as fear overtook fury. One shouted, "She ain't worth it!" And they broke, scattering into the hills like crows torn from carrion. The town exhaled. Doors creaked open. Elias strode forward, boots crunching dust, his rifle slack at his side. He looked at the body, then at her, then back again. His voice was rough, almost unbelieving. You've done what no lawman dared. Clara holstered the Colt. Her face gave nothing, only a calm that came when fire had burned itself out. She turned away from the street, away from the gawking crowd, and walked back toward the porch. Lucy met her at the steps, eyes wide with tears. Clara knelt, brushing soot from the girl's cheek. The child's arms wrapped tight around her neck. That night, lantern light glowed soft against the windows of the McGraw house. Upstairs, Clara pulled the quilt to Lucy's chin, the girl's breath slowing into sleep. The ranch lay quiet for the first time in months, the air heavy with peace instead of fear. And the old storyteller's voice carried, low and certain. On the edge of the frontier, justice did not ride with sheriffs or gunmen, but with a widow who would not bow to fear. They called her the Black Widow, but those who knew better called her the one who tucked a child safe and laid a legend to rest.